Well, here it is. It's about the middle of April, and I got pushed another software update to my car, and I know that some other people get it about a week before me. I tend to get mine a little later, about a week after I start hearing rumors about the new software update. So let's take a look and see what this software update has in it. Alrighty, let's see what it has. Okay, this is one of the cool features I was really looking forward to. So they did driving visualization improvements. That doesn't help me any because I don't have any driving visualization really, because I don't have autopilot and I have an older version of the hardware that's in here. So there's some things that I don't get. The second thing is the dashcam viewer. Now this is the one that I'm really interested in. It allows you to look at some of the videos that you've recorded out of your dashcam. So that's really cool. I want to check that one out in a minute. And then they have a means to let them know if there's an out-of-order supercharger. So if you pull up to one and it's not working, you can actually come back and tell them that it's not working. So that's pretty cool to make that a little more effective. I haven't encountered any that haven't been working. I had one that was a little fidgety, but I haven't encountered any that weren't working. So, but good to know anyway that it would be there. So let's see, where would the dashcam dashcam improvements be? So let's see where this is. I'm charging right now, so let's go ahead, or I was charging anyway. Let's tap here, and it says launch viewer. So we can save the footage still the way we would before, but now the viewer is available to let us see things that are on there. Okay, cool. So these are places that I went. This was March 15th when I was out driving. Oh, look at that. It shows all of them at the same time. That is very, very cool. So I can actually see something useful as I want to see my dash cam. This would have been the last time I took a long drive, so it would have been, I was headed down to, this is when I was headed down to the Fairchild Gardens on that Sunday before they closed the gardens, and we got sent on lockdown. But here's some of the things that would be here. Let's take a look here. This was a night drive home on Wednesday, February 12th. So 7 o'clock. Oh, I must have been picking up my daughter from somewhere. Let's see, February 13th here. This was driving along. Where was I? Anyway, I like this idea of the dash cam. This is really nice to be able to see my dash cam video and decide what I want to do, and I can delete them from here too, which is really kind of nice to be able to just delete them if I want to, right here on the video. So I could just go to like this one and say, oh, I don't need this one for anything. I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and just hit the delete button, and that'll take it off, and that'll allow me to delete the footage. That's pretty nice, because when you put it on your computer, it's very complicated. I'll show you on the computer what it looks like in a minute. You take out your USB stick and plug it into your computer to see all your dashcam videos. What you get is just basically a laundry list of all the videos arranged like this. So you have the date there with the front, the left repeater, the back, and the right repeater shown as different files. And they have the timestamp on them and everything, but they're done in like increments. So if you recorded a couple of videos, it's kind of hard to track down what you were doing, especially if they were in a kind of a tight time frame. You have to work around and click on every one of them to figure out what's going on. And some of the video services don't recognize this file type and do some funny things with it. And you can't fast forward and whatever. And some work fine. But it's just kind of a pain in the neck to work with. So having it in the car first, where you can pull out, you can look at it, and then you can bring the stick inside and download something if you want to, much better solution. So given that I can't drive my car, I wanted to spend a minute and talk to you about something interesting about electricity itself. And it's something that kind of comes out of the electric theory and how we get to the point of distributing electricity to the homes. So let's take a walk along here. Let's go outside, and we're going to go for a walk. And this was the other day I was walking along, and I actually encountered this, and it got me to thinking about doing a video specifically about this. So what we're going to see is I'm going to hear the corona discharge. Now, corona, yes, it's the same name, but it has more to do with the sun's effect of the corona around the sun, more than it does with any of the current topics in today and anything that's going on. It has nothing to do with the coronavirus or anything like that. This is the corona discharge. And the reason the corona discharge happens is because the air around the cables is actually ionizing the electron particles as they're being pushed through the line. This is a high voltage power line that's taking energy from one spot to another. And sometimes the flow is so great that some of the electrons basically escape from the cabling, from the copper wires, and actually pop out into the atmosphere. Now, typically you'll only hear this sound when the humidity is high enough, or there's other factors that cause it to happen. But it can happen under other conditions. So let's take a walk and listen to that sound for a moment. That buzzing sound you hear, that's called corona discharge. It's actually the electrical current in an auditory form. Pretty cool, right? It's one of those really interesting things. Now, you can also visually see it in some cases, and it depends again on atmospheric conditions and so forth. One of the first times I ever saw it was when I was driving down to Key West. I was driving along the 7 Mile Bridge, and there's the overhead power transmission lines that are going along. And as you're driving at night especially, you can actually see it sparking. It sparks blue. And you can actually see the light as you're going along. It's very, very cool when you see it. And that moment when you first see it, you're like, what the heck is that? It is like a little piece of lightning. It's actually almost exactly like lightning in a sense, where there's a spark of electricity that happens that gets ionized. And it happens more in the salty air there that's near the along by the Keys, but it can happen in other areas with different conditions depending on how much ionization there is, what the conditions are outside and so forth, and how much voltage is being carried along through the transmission lines. So here's a video that I found that kind of shows how this looks, not along to the Keys, but you can see the effect in full force. So really interesting. So you can hear it and you can see it. It actually enters the visual spectrum and the auditory spectrum just because of the fact that this discharge is happening. These electrons are actually leaving the cable, and that's what you hear. Now, if you're driving along near an overhead power line that's like this, often what you'll hear, especially if you're on AM radio, I know most people use satellite now, you don't use AM anymore, but if you were happening to use AM radio, you would hear the radio cut in and out. You might hear a bzzz come onto the radio, which is from the same effect. It's actually causing the radio wave to be distorted in some way. So you're actually hearing the effect of it as you go along. So it's kind of an interesting effect. Now, why this is interesting is because of the way we distribute power. Now, as you may know, Thomas Edison had this idea for direct current. He wanted to have direct current going into people's homes so that you could power up your devices around the house and have electricity in your home. The problem with direct current is you have to have electrical stations at very regular intervals in communities and so forth to be able to generate enough power, because direct current can't be transmitted over long distances the same way alternating current can. So direct current would have never worked in the practical application of having electricity, say in your home, or being able to take it to different places. However, Mr. Tesla, funny, Mr. Tesla's name comes up again when it comes to electrical theory, had this idea for alternating current. And the alternating current can actually have its phase change slightly because it's being stepped on and off, so that you can create enough energy and actually step the voltage up and distribute it over long distances to get to from one point to another. So you can have a relatively few number of power plants take that electricity. Now, since electricity has this relationship between the voltage and the current, you can actually step down the current, step up the voltage, and distribute it over a long distance. And then when you get to the substation where it's going to be turned back into electricity for the home, you can actually step it back down, bring the voltage down, bring the current up, and actually distribute it into the network to come to your home, so you can have your 240 volts and the amperage that you have in your house, so that you can run from your circuit breaker and actually have something running through your house. So this actually works, and it also works out that because you can go over long distances, there are locations that can share power. So you can actually sell power between one network and another. You can actually move power from one state to another, depending on who needs the power. So that's how these power distribution companies came into being. You may have heard of the Enrons in the 1990s. That's how they were basically buying and selling electricity from different organizations. So kind of interesting the way that all kind of plays out when you think about it. There's a lot of different things that happen in terms of getting power out there. And it's kind of interesting that it works out this way. So it's sort of that, in a nutshell, you get your power distributed out, it comes to your house, and you're able to use it. you know, for most people, I just want to flick on the light switch and see what's happening. For me, I find it fascinating how we get it there. And the fact that we have this corona discharge is really kind of interesting. And the fact that you can hear it, see it, is just kind of neat to me. It's one of those really kind of geeky, interesting things. And since I can't drive my car right now, I got to talk about something because I always have to talk. That's just who I am. So I just find that kind of interesting and just wanted to share with you. So one of the coolest features is the fact that I can sit in my car with the garage door closed and actually work in here, which I do periodically throughout the week. But, you know, I was sitting in my car and I was struck by the fact that this sign is up on my door. And it's a reminder that internal combustion engines cause carbon monoxide and are actually a danger. But when I'm inside my Tesla, that's not an issue at all. I can sit in my garage all day and there's no problem because there's no engine running. And I find that to be totally cool.